New York Giants fans, you should get excited because we are finally into the preseason weeks, right? I know some of you are going to say, oh, I don't know these players and blah, blah. But this is where you get to see some of your young players, some of those guys that you might have been like, why did they draft him? Why did they pick him up in free agency? Why did they pick him up as an undrafted free agent? We get to see all of that. Most importantly, we get to see what this depth chart looks like because the first unofficial depth chart has been released. I'm here to talk about it. I'm Coach Gene Clemons, and I have a giant issue. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another edition of A Giant Issue. I'm Coach Gene Clemons, Season 2, Episode 5, just in case you didn't know. I'm excited to be back. New York Giants on SI. Make sure you check out all of the New York Giants news and information and the pieces that we're doing over there. I just did a piece on the best utilization for Abdul Carter in this offense. I did a piece on how this secondary is going to look different this year than it looked in the past. You want to check all of that out. I think I do a pretty good job of giving you some jewels. And so check out that content over there. Come over here, hit the subscribe button. Check out the New York Giants on SI YouTube channel, and make sure you hit the notification bell so that you know anytime I drop a new edition of A Giant Issue. Definitely go if you're on the road, if you're at work, if you're just working out, and you want to listen while you're doing your thing, hit up the podcast on Apple Podcasts, on Spotify, wherever you get your podcast from. I always appreciate the support. So, the New York Giants have released their first official, unofficial depth chart, right? And I say that because how can the team that releases a depth chart, how is it not official if they're the ones that are releasing it, right? Like if it was an unofficial depth chart, then somebody else would release it and say, hey, this is the Giants' unofficial depth chart, the way they see it. But if this is coming from the team, then yeah, this is their official depth chart. So I always say official, unofficial, because I like to remind you guys that these are the Giants that release this depth chart. This isn't me. This isn't some dude on the street that gave you this depth chart. This is the Giants releasing this depth chart. And the first thing I got to get to is the quarterback situation. Ladies and gentlemen, Russell Wilson is quarterback 1. Guess who quarterback 2 is? That's right, Jameis Winston. I'm not here to just talk about Jameis Winston for the sake of Jameis Winston, talking about Jameis Winston. By the way, go check out the pivot in that Jameis Winston interview. It was fantastic. I'm telling you this to tell you, they don't see Jackson Dart as a starter. So don't keep talking, like don't keep messing with yourselves talking about some. If things go poorly, Jackson Dart's going to be in here. If things go poorly for Russell Wilson, they're bringing in Jameis Winston because they believe Jameis Winston can help them win games. Never forget the time for, hey, we're building for the future, and so don't look for the wins to come right now. That time is over, right? They had 2 years of losing. Think about this. If the Giants, if they took the job, and in 2022, if they would have lost, if they'd have had however many wins they had, right? 4 wins, 5 wins. And then they came back, or 6 wins, whatever it was. And then they came back in 2023, and they had 4 wins, 3 wins, whatever it was. I don't even know because it's bad, right? If they had back-to-back bad seasons, in year 3, wouldn't you be looking for the wins? Right? If they had in year 1, if they lost, and in year 2, if they lost, in year 3, you would be like, hey, it's time to see some wins or we're moving on. Ladies and gentlemen, that's where we're at right now. So this is not a rebuilding year. This is a we need to win. They will not drop everything and say, hey, we're going to tank the season this year. Because if they do, all they're doing is tanking it for another coach to come in here, possibly even another GM to come in here. They're going to want to win games, and you're not going to win those games trying to trot Jackson Dart out there because he's not ready to play. And it's not a diss on him. He needs time. We all knew he needed time. If he was a set it and forget it type of quarterback, then he would have went at the top of the draft. Right? He wouldn't have been able to be around at the end of the first round or somewhere in there in the first round for the Giants to be able to trade back into the first round to get. If he was a set it and forget it, put him in right now, he's ready to win games for you, he'd be there. But he's not. And that's okay, because if he's ready to win games next year, you want to have a really good team to drop him into, right? That's what they did in Kansas City. They built a really good team. They had a quarterback. They drafted a quarterback who they thought was the guy. They let him sit while the really good team continued to win. And then the next year, they dropped him into that really good team and boom, right? It was over from there. Rinse, wash, repeat, ladies and gentlemen. Do what the people who are winning are doing. And so that's how the Giants should be looking at this. This is not a situation where you've got guys that are like, hey, we can afford to lose big for another season. This is a hot seat situation. As much as people don't think it's a hot seat situation, it really is. And so if they're losing, or if they're losing because the quarterback isn't getting it done, don't expect them to bench Wilson and go to Dart. They're going to put Jameis Winston out there. I just want people to understand that. That's the first thing that I noticed about this thing. The second thing that I noticed is that the tight end situation seems like a mess. They got Theo Johnson as the one, yet we haven't really seen any Theo Johnson highlights from training camp. We keep seeing Daniel Bellinger catching passes. I don't know how good Theo Johnson is at blocking, but I know he's not better than Chris Manhertz, right? Greg Dulcich was a receiving tight end who came in and couldn't stay healthy with the Broncos, but he has talent. Thomas Fidone is a guy who stayed hurt most of the time in college, but when he got healthy, showed some signs. Jermaine Terry is a guy who, when he transferred, showed athleticism. But they have some like H-back type dudes, and then some legitimate tight end blocking type dudes, and then they've got some Theo Johnson, Daniel Bellinger guys. I don't know what they're doing, but if you draft a guy, even if it's late in the draft, you got to think that you have some type of plan for him. So I could see Dulcich being out of here. Maybe they think Johnson and Bellinger have improved enough, or Manhertz is not needed, but you just resigned him as well. The tight end, it's a mess. You're not running 3 tight end sets, not with all of these wide receivers out here that you have, right? If you didn't have a wide receiving core that had an opportunity to be one of the better wide receiving cores in the National Football League, then I could say, oh, well, maybe they're going to put multiple tight ends out there. But that's not the case. Right? That's not the case. Wide receivers. This one also interesting because at the Malik Neighbors position, number 2 behind him is not Bo Collins, it's not Daquan Felton, it's LaJordan Humphrey, who to me is a special teamer, right? Behind Wan'Dale Robinson, it's not a Jordan Bly, it's not a Montreal Washington, it's a Amir Smith-Marset, who's a special teamer. And then you look behind Darius Slayton, and it's all real legitimate wide receivers. Slayton, Hyatt, Pascal, Juice Wells. Jordan Bly, who's been having a really good training camp, right? Undrafted free agent. He's been having a really good training camp. He's 5th, 6th behind Wan'Dale Robinson. Like, it's going to be hard for these dudes to make the roster at the wide receiver position. So that jumps out at me. Then we go over to the running back position. Cam Scatterbo is hurt, right? Devin Singletary is the running back too. Remember when I told you guys that I thought Devin Singletary might be the odd man out because he doesn't bring any value as a special teamer, but you can't get rid of him if you don't have a Cam Scatterbo that can stay healthy. But that is bad news for Dante Miller. I know that they just brought in Jonathan Ward, but that's bad news for Jonathan Ward. It's going to be Tracy, Singletary, Scatterbo. That's how the running back position is going to look. I think that everything else comes from the wide receiver position because they have so many wide receivers that they covet. I also think it's interesting that as of right now, Greg Van Roten is still the starting right guard. Not for nothing, Evan Neal has looked like a better guard. He's looked like he's looked like the more dominant guard, right? Because if we're being honest about it, Greg Van Roten isn't great in pass protection. Evan Neal still has his quirks, but it's a lot cleaner as a guard than it was as a right tackle. But when it comes to run blocking, it's not even close. Evan Neal is road grading people. Greg Van Roten is not. So it'll be interesting to see what happens as we get into the preseason. But Evan Neal is the 2 on the right side behind Van Roten. Stinney is the 2 behind John Runyon Jr. on the left side, which is interesting to me because Jake Cubis is the 3 at right guard when he had left guard last year. He was playing left guard last year. That seems weird to me. And then the center position is still the center position. It's JMS, it's Schlottman, it's Jimmy Morrison. I don't know how the 2 and 3 are going to play out. But I will tell you this. Marcus Bowe, he is the number 2 right tackle because Stone Forsythe has looked terrible, right? So Marcus Bowe is the number 2 right tackle. Guess who the number 2 left tackle is? Joshua Ezeudu, which means because James Hudson would be the number 2 left tackle, but right now he's the number 1 left tackle because Andrew Thomas is out, which almost assuredly means Joshua Ezeudu is going to get cut, right? Stone Forsythe is going to get cut because when Andrew Thomas returns, it'll be Thomas and Illuminor. It'll be Hudson, Mbo, right? They're not keeping 3 deep on the tackles, especially when you have an Evan Neal who in a pinch could push out to right tackle and play right tackle. So there's no reason to keep a 5th tackle in this situation when you got Mbo and you got Hudson the 3rd, who's the backup. But they've got Marcus Mbo as the number 2 right tackle and the number 3 left tackle, which further tells me Joshua Ezeudu is probably going to get cut, right? It's just a numbers game. It's a numbers game at that point. So on the offensive side of the ball, things are going to be interesting to me because I want to see what this second unit looks like working together. Like, I hope in the first preseason game, they don't start any of the offensive starters on the offensive line. I hope they rest Illuminor, Van Roten, Schmidt, Runyon. I want to see Evan Neal, Mbo, Schlottman, Aaron Stinney or Jake Cubis, and I want to see James Hudson III. I want to see how much better this offensive line's depth is by watching the second unit work, right? Watching that second unit work. That's what I'm really going to be interested to see. And then I want to see what the receivers look like. I think Jalen Hyatt should get featured in these preseason games. Like, let him show that you are willing to feature him, getting him the ball, either pushing the ball deep or something on a run where he can catch it and go. I want to really see that. And then I want to see Daniel Bellinger get the opportunity to cook. This will be a Winston, Dart, Tommy DeVito type of thing going on. I don't think you'll see Russell Wilson out there unless you're going to get the full first team out there, which I don't think you'll get in the first preseason game. I could be wrong. Defensively, watch this, ladies and gentlemen. I know that all of you are like, Abdul Carter. I love him. I think he's going to be great. Kayvon Thibodeau is the starting defensive end right now. Kayvon Thibodeau is the starting defensive end. Brian Burns is the starting outside linebacker because Kayvon Thibodeau's good, right? Interesting enough, they've got Thibodeau as the D end. I think last year they had Brian Burns as the D end, but they've got Thibodeau as the D end this year. Burns is the outside linebacker. Abdul Carter is behind Burns. Chauncey Golston, who is the real legitimate defensive end from the Cowboys that the Giants picked up, he's the number 2 guy there, right? The third guys don't matter because at the end of the day, you're not going to be able to keep all these guys, right? Dexter Lawrence is at nose tackle. Here's the weird part about Dexter Lawrence being at nose tackle. Elijah Chapman is the backup nose tackle. And the only way you should be putting Elijah Chapman in at nose tackle is in obvious, without a doubt, passing situations, because he's going to get swallowed up. Pause. He's going to get, if he's in there on run plays, which we've seen in training camp. Like, he shouldn't be out there to try to run defend. He should be out there hunting the quarterback. Nunez Roches is still the starting defensive tackle. But I will tell you this. Roy Robertson Harris is second. Darius Alexander is third. Ledbetter is fourth. All 3 of those guys are guys that they brought in because Rakeem Nunez Roches wasn't getting the job done, right? He wasn't what they needed. So don't be surprised to see this change. However, I can't wait to see this second unit get work. Abdul Carter and Chauncey Golston as the outside linebacker and the defensive end. I'd rather see Darius Alexander with that group. And then, okay, cool, keep Elijah Chapman out there. But also maybe get in some Jordan Riley and some DJ Davidson, right? Like, have those dudes out there. But I want to see what it looks like because Golston is a legitimate DN. He has rush ability at DN. He also has rush ability if you put him down there. It's a 3 technique. So put him at the 3 technique to rush, bring in a Trace Ford or a Tamon Fox in obvious passing downs. Let's see the depth of this defensive line, especially when it comes to hunting the quarterback and stopping the run. Bobby Okereke, Micah McFadden are the 2 inside linebackers. Interesting enough, Darius Muasau is behind Okereke and not behind McFadden. I think this is interesting because I think Muasau has an opportunity to push McFadden. Don't know if he has the opportunity to push Okereke because Okereke is good, and I think he'll have a bounce-back season this year. I don't know if Micah McFadden has another level to his play. He might be tapped out, and if so, I think Darius Muasau has a chance to push him, but not if he's not actually his backup. So Chris Board, who does his thing, but is really more of a special teamer. He's behind Micah McFadden. Maybe this year we don't see much of McFadden on special teams because he's, kind of established himself that much more as a defensive starter. Tyler Nubin is the starting safety over Dane Belton, which not necessarily surprised by, but also wouldn't be surprised to see Dane Belton get some 1 minutes because I think Dane Belton has proven that he knows how to get to the ball. The interesting part about the lineup is at cornerback, it is Paulson Adebo and Deontay Banks or Cordell Flott. I don't think this is a negative for Deontay Banks. I know a lot of you have been down on Deontay Banks, but I don't think this is a negative for Deontay Banks. This is a positive on Cordell Flott. If you remember, Cordell Flott was supposed to be the number 2 cornerback last year. Him and Banks on the side at corner. Well, if you add an Adebo, it doesn't mean that Cordell Flott is no longer good. It just means that you added a Paulson Adebo that you paid a lot of money for, and he's going to get the shot, right? But now Cordell Flott has to push the number 2 dude, Deontay Banks. To me, this means when we go dime personnel, I've got better personnel. And if you read how they're going to employ the secondary, you'll see. Imagine, because Cordell Flott played in the nickel, right? So now when you go dime, you've got Drew Phillips in one slot. You've got Cordell Flott in the other slot. They can man up a lot of people. Now you've got Holland and you've got Tyler Nubin and or Dane Belton on the third level. That's a pretty nice, young, athletic secondary right there. Whether you're talking about the nickel or you're talking about the dime. I also like the fact that it means if Paulson Adebo or Deontay Banks gets hurt, you have a legitimate starting cornerback to come in and play. I love the fact that if Tyler Nubin or Javon Holland, the free safety, if either one of them gets hurt, you've got a guy who has starting ability in Dane Belton to come in. I want to see the depth of this of this defensive back group get put on display. I want to see Trey Hawkins out there. I want to see Corey Black, who people have talked about having a really good training camp. I want to see O'Donnell Fortune, who seems to be buried behind all of these cornerbacks. I want to see Makari Page. I want to see how those guys perform so I can see if any of them have an opportunity to booster this already burgeoning depth that we see on the secondary. I'm excited about these guys, right? I want to see who gets the nod at kick returner, right? I want to see what they're doing. If you notice on the depth chart, Gunnar Olszewski is the essentially the 6th wide receiver or the 6th slot receiver behind Wan'Dale Robinson, because Smith Marset, who took over those duties when Olszewski was hurt, he's the number 2. But Olszewski's a good returner, so I'm sure he's going to have a chance. But also, Dante Miller is a home run hitter. Is he going to have a chance? I want to see how this return game and how the special teams look in coverage. They've got a lot more bodies. Makari Page, I think this is where Makari Page and O'Donnell Fortune can really make a name for themselves because they're bigger body defensive backs. And so if they can make an impact on special teams, that's going to allow them to jump up the ladder on some of these other guys. Really excited to see those things. I think it's interesting, right? If we look at the preseason slate, right? If we look at the preseason slate, the Giants already in week 1 have an opponent in the Bills who it'll be interesting to see who the Bills play because we might get some really good matchups, right? The Bills have some wide receivers that they need to break in, some guys that are in year 2 or year 2 at the program that they need to see more out of. That can mean some really good receivers for the Giants to have to go against, or good talented receivers. I want to see how they respond, right? They've got a defense that has some moxie to it. They've got some depth on the line. We get a chance to see how that offensive line responds. We get a chance to see how that running game responds. I want to see all of it. I'm excited. I can't wait for Saturday, 1 p.m., right? 1 p.m., I think, on NFL Network. I can't wait. I may have to go live. And watch the first quarter with you guys, or maybe even watch the first half, where I can comment. Obviously, I can't, show the game, but if I get a chance to, have the sound on, and we can you can be watching together with me, and we can talk about it, stay on the same thing. Maybe that's something I do. But I'm really looking forward to watching this game, because I want to know what these players are going to do, and you should want to know what these players are going to do, because this is your team. And outside of the guys that we absolutely positively know are going to be here, we have no clue what the rest of this team is going to look like. There's some real questions to be answered, right? So I'm looking forward to starting to see how those questions get answered. You should be looking forward to it as well. Make sure that you're hanging out with me, right? More and more podcasts. We started getting back into our regular, mojo, where you see me almost every day throughout the week. I want to be able to be your sounding board. So please go ahead, leave a comment. We love to hear from you. Love to hear what you have to say. We like to advance these arguments, advance these debates. Sometimes just advance whatever you're thinking about, so that we can continue to move that way. Go to the New York Giants on SI. Make sure you check out everything we're doing over there. Listen, the only thing I ask of you guys is to patronize, right? If you're watching, if you're subscribed, if you're going to the website, you're checking out the articles and the different things that we release over there, all that news and information, then you're doing your job, you're paying your rent. And I always appreciate it. Until next time, I'm Coach Gene Clemons, and I have a giant issue.